As Belinda was saying earlier, I've been born in San Diego and raised in the 31st Street Church. And so many of you guys have played an active role in my life growing up, and so I just want to thank you all for all that you've done. I also at this time would like to thank Pastor McCosker, though he's not here. I'd like to thank him publicly for the time that he's invested in me, also with Pastor Lynch for giving me this opportunity to speak today. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to start off with a prayer. Dear Lord, thank you so much for allowing us all to come here on this one day in your sanctuary to lift up your name. I pray that as we leave these doors soon, that we never forget you, that we carry you throughout the week, and that we're able to minister to others through your name. In Christ's name I pray, amen. So today's sermon is entitled "Despair in the Desert." And I get the title of today's sermon coming from Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 through 15. And so if you don't mind me, I'll just like to reread it once again. And I'm reading it from the New Living Translation. I'm reading Exodus 2, verses 11 through 15 from the New Living Translation. And it reads, "One day, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and looked on their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. He looked this way and he looked that way, and seeing no one, he struck him down and hid the Egyptian in the sand. When he went up the next day, behold, 2 Hebrews were struggling together. And he said to the man in the wrong, 'Why do you strike your companion?' He answered, 'Who made you a prince and judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?' Then Moses was afraid and thought, 'Surely this thing is known.' When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and stayed in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well." Moses has always been an interesting character to me. There's so much to gather from his story that can be helpful and instrumental to us in our lives today. Personally, Moses in the rotation of biblical characters that I read throughout the school year, David and Joseph, trying to gather from their mistakes and learn from what they learned, see the type of leaders that they were and how God used them to direct his people. Moses goes by many names. He's a very important character to the Jewish people. He's referred to as Yered, meaning descent, or master of the fence, companion because he brought the Israelites back to God. He's also referred to father of seers, hope, master of rejection, goodness, son of pardon, Levi for his tribal name. Moses was an excellent military leader and prince in Egypt, then turned murderer when he killed the Egyptian, a runaway from Pharaoh, then a shepherd, a prophet to the Israelites, a lawgiver, rabbi to the Jews, voice of God to the nations, a judge and leader for his people. And if you don't identify with any of these traits, I know there are a few of you in here who have seen the imaginative and vivid pictures that are found in the silent film, The 10 Commandments. Maybe not the first one that came out early in the 19th century, but maybe you've seen the second or third revision. Or those of you don't identify with, maybe you've seen Moses the Lawgiver. It was a mini-series that came on TV in the 70s. And then for those of you who are a little bit younger, around my age, maybe you identify with the Prince of Egypt, a cartoon version of the story of Moses. I remember growing up watching the movie over Belinda and Uncle Paul's house with Janine and Jordy and Kamani and the rest of us. The movie is filled with countless songs, vivid pictures, and a glossed over account of his real life. Moses is not only an important figure to the Jews, I found out. That's obvious. He wrote the first 5 books in our Old Testament. He wrote the Torah for them. It's quite understandable that Moses plays an important role to the Christians. In Jesus' day, the Jews often referred to Moses to criticize Jesus. But something else that I found out that was really important to me or caught my eye is that he's also important to Muslims. In the Islam faith, he's mentioned more in the Quran than any other individual, and his life is narrated and recounted more than any other prophet. This is to Muslims. But he's also an important part of the Baha'i faith. So we're not alone in our evaluation of his life and contributions. Moses' life is dynamic and inspirational, making it understandable why he's a major pillar in the Jewish, Christian, Muslim faith, and why so many people have made films after him. His life spanning over 120 years, is divided is separated into 3 different phases, 40 years each. During the first 40 years of his life, it's easily rememberable by many people. It's when he was born in Egypt. He had a miraculous birth, being able to survive at a time when Pharaoh was killing all the Jewish boys. He was raised and brought up as Pharaoh's daughter's son. The first 40 years is quite impressed upon our memories. During this first 40 years of Moses' life, he was an excellent military leader. If you study history, he was praised and honored for all the different military expeditions that he went on behalf of the Egyptians. The second phase of his life, not quite paid to as much attention as when he's in Midian, is after he flees Egypt, and while in that second 40 years, he's a shepherd. And then the last stage of his life, probably the most written part of his life, between 80 and 120, is when he comes back to Israel, he rescues his people, and is leading them in the wilderness. This last 40 years of Moses' life is very well known. It's recounted and depicted in many sermons. You can see it in the movies, and it's something that we pay close attention to. And when thinking of Moses, I thought, although none of us are royal, I don't think there's any kings or queens in the room. And although none of us is currently leading a nation out of bondage, there are similarities between Moses and us today. And did you see yourself in the narration that I just gave? Did you hear me tell your story? And if not, I want to clarify a little bit how Moses relates to you and I today. He lived under a double consciousness, a term coined by W.E.B. Du Bois that refers to his theory of African American psychological challenges of reconciling an African heritage with a European upbringing and education. Referring to us, W.E. Du Bois says, for those of you who haven't heard the term, he paraphrased it this way: is a peculiar sensation, the sense of always looking at one's own self through the eyes of others. Whenever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body. He does not wish to Africanize America, for America has too much to teach the world in Africa. Yet at the same time, he would not bleach his African blood in the flood of white Americanism, for he knows that Negro blood has a message for the world. Living as an Egyptian, completely under the tutelage of his nation's best teachers and educators, immersed in an Egyptian culture to the fullest, Moses understood our double consciousness, while fully understanding his Hebrew heritage and his faith of his parents and the culture of the slaves who built the wealth that he sits on. There's also a double consciousness that we can identify with Moses. As Christians living in a secular society, we understand that our nation values the dollar above all else. When God teaches us that Jehovah is the one God that we should serve, in a nation where modesty is quickly eroding, God has a standard for his people to uphold. Do you see yourself in Moses as he's struggling within himself, trying to do what is right, but in turn out to be the wrong decision? Do you see yourself in Moses having a calling on your life and knowing that God has something greater for you, a purpose for your life, and you try to interpret it and act it out, but it turns out fatally wrong? This doesn't just apply to a singular individual. Maybe you're a parent trying to raise your kid and you realize that you've been misguided in your actions and that you've messed up with the kid at some stage in your life. Maybe it's at work and you're trying to grow at your workplace, but you've made the wrong decision. You're trying to understand why the boss isn't relaying to you the way that you're expecting. Maybe it's a church community wanting to move in the right direction, but may have taken a few wrong steps. Wherever you fall under, we all have been in a place where we have sought to do what is right, but things have unfortunately turned out wrong. We've matched these situations with the wrong actions on our behalf, unwillingly though, or unintentionally. We've ended up in a wrong situation. And so, Moses is not only a relevant person and a great person to study because of these great stories in the Bible, but even more importantly, it is because we can each relate to him in some aspect to his life. Today, I would like to focus on the 40 years in between these great pillars of Moses' life. I would like to, maybe phrase it as a valley. We know very well that Moses' life at the beginning was amazing. He was a prince of Egypt. He was living in vast wealth. He had the life golden. And at the end, although they were traveling in the desert for 40 years, he was leading a nation. He was in direct communication with God. And so when you look at Moses' 120 years here on earth, you have to wonder, what about those 40 years in between? Were they of any valuation? Are they important to us today? And I dare say that the Moses that we see in the last 40 years of his life could not have become who he was without those 40 years in between. There's no way that we could have gotten Moses who talked with God and got the 10 Commandments, except for those 40 years while he was a shepherd. There's no way we could have gotten Moses that led the Israelites out of Egypt without those 40 years living in Midian. And so I just want to pay a little bit of attention to the 40 years, because I believe it's of equal importance, not only for him, but also for us. Because I believe at some point in our lives, we each are going to experience, maybe not with that lens, those 40 years wondering, what is God doing in our lives? Where are we going? What are we going to do afterward? We got here not on purpose. We didn't mean to end up in this situation. Yes, it may have been our fault. But what are these 40 years, or what is this period in our life? What value does it have to our life? And so, I first want to look at, how did Moses get there? He thought what he was doing was right. He didn't, although it's clear that it wasn't right, just to be, let it be known, killing someone is not right. He thought what he was doing was right. From the text, we see that Moses arrives in Midian because although, you could say because he glossed over his conscience for a second. Some commentators like to say that Moses was justified in his killing of the taskmaster, that based on ancient times that one must avenge the blood of his brothers. But if you look at the text, the Bible is quite clear in its analysis of what Moses did. First, Moses checks to see if the coast is clear. Anyone have children, or anyone remember back to the young days? Before you do anything wrong, you look to your left and you look to your right to make sure that the coast is clear. And so Moses knew what he was doing was right. He would have no reason or no need to look to the left and look to the right to make sure that things were clear. Second, he kills him. He doesn't reprimand him or tell him to stop. Moses is the prince of Egypt. He has some authority. He's a great military leader, but he decides to kill the man. Using his strength as a fighter and warrior, he kills him without just cause. And then third reason, knowing what Moses did was wrong, is that he's hiding the Egyptian. If what he did was right, there's no need or purpose for him hiding him in the sand. So let's catch this. He is right that the taskmaster was wrong, probably being extremely brutal, without just cause. The taskmaster was in the wrong at the moment. Even more importantly, the entire system of slavery is evil and no place for God's chosen people to be in. But under those circumstances, it did not justify the wrong act that Moses committed. Amen. Moses had grown up under the belief and recognition that he was the one, he was the chosen one, given the best opportunity to free the Israelites. That he, Moses, was the one, the baby that his parents had prayed about, the nation, the baby that the Israelites had been hoping for as slaves. He was the one who was supposed to deliver them from captivity. He was the one that baby that the Egyptians feared most and wished to kill at his birth. And through all of this, he still survived, a clear sign that God had him in his hands. And so Moses, growing up, fully understanding that he was the one to save the Israelites, believes that at this time, this is the perfect time for me to free my people. And let's give Moses the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that God did, in fact, want Moses to free his nation through arms and killing of the taskmaster, which I'm not arguing, but just let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Under no direction was Moses instructed to do it at that time. The second reason that Moses ends up in Midian is because he's out of God's time. He's out of sync with what God wants him to do. And so Moses' response was terribly wrong. His action did not meet what was necessary, and he was impatient to rely on God, which resulted in a state of hopelessness and fear that led him to the desert, desperate with no foreseeable future for himself or to recover the future he had as a deliverer. Moses never intended to be in the desert. He had good intentions, just as many people in here have found themselves in despair in a seemingly empty desert. Whether it was a divorce where you thought you were doing all that was right, only to end up in a broken marriage you didn't intend to be there. Or maybe now you're unemployed and broke. Someone here is searching for the answer from God of how to get out of their current situation. You didn't intend to be there. Or it could have been the cancer that you thought you never should have had, or the extra weight that you're trying to lose, or the child that you're trying to recuperate. You never intended to end up in this situation. And it doesn't matter the mistake or the wrong action that you may have taken. I believe there is so much to learn from Moses' story of what to do when we find ourselves in unwanted situations. And looking at Moses' time, those 40 years those 40 years in the desert, leading sheep, a very maybe boring occupation, but the perfect time for God to work on his character, to work on the patience, and to have him fully rely on him. And if we take the despair that we find ourselves with in the desert and turn it into a deliberate opportunity to rely completely on God and have him grow our patience, the results are undeniable. Amen. Take a look at Moses. After his 40 years, Moses now had the courage to stand up to Pharaoh rather than running away, which he did after killing the Egyptian. After his 40 years, Moses now had the patience to lead a nation out of bondage and into a land of bounty, with party gifts from their former slave owners. And after 40 years, Moses now talked with God face to face. After those 40 years in the desert, Moses was now communicating on behalf of God, and his words have lasted over 3,000 years and now influenced over 3 major religions. Ellen White says in the book Christ's Triumph that it is through these 40 years that Moses became a humble man. It is through meditation on God's character and a recognition of God and his surroundings that brought Moses closer. For us today, we must remember that our strength is only the connection to the source of all power, which is God. Amen. Moses is a prototype of Jesus. And although he was a human who sinned, just like you and me, Jesus' story models so much of Moses' life. Both Moses and Jesus survived a miraculous birth, being sought after the kings during their time who were trying to kill the expected chosen one. Both Jesus and Moses left the royal throne rooms to lead their people into relationship with the one true God. Both Moses and Jesus were sought after after their births to be killed, and both were mighty in word and deed. Their actions spoke volumes. Both Moses and Jesus at times were rejected in spite of the very people they were trying to lead. It was after Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness that he started his earthly ministry. And it was only after Moses' 40 years in Midian that God was able to use him to his fullest capacity. If there's anyone here who seeks to rectify a wrong made in their life, and if you're tired of the despair in the desert of Midian, and you want security found only in God's arms, I invite you to take a look at your current situation and acknowledge that you may not have intended to be there, but this is the perfect opportunity for God to use you. And this is the perfect time for God to use you. And in closing, I just want to reiterate all that I've said, that and many times in our lives, we don't intend to be in the current situation that we are. That we did the wrong action, and yes, we didn't end up where we wanted to be, but God still is able to use that current situation for his greater. Amen. There's only through patience and reliance in that wilderness or that desert of despair that we're able to come into a closer relationship with Christ. Yes, you might be doing something that you see that you think is meaningless. Yes, you might be doing something that appears not worthwhile to the world, but it's only after those times of meditation with God that is God able to truly use you for your benefit and for his benefit. Amen. If you please bow your heads and close your eyes. Dear Lord, thank you so much for using me today. I pray that the message that you had for us here at Better First Street, we're able to take it out with us into the world. Dear Lord, yes, we're not perfect, and at times we make the terrible and wrong mistakes in our lives. But I pray that you use those decisions that weren't in line with your will, and that you take these as opportunities to be used for your greater. I pray that you please be with us throughout this next week, that we're able to speak lives to the people in our lives, the actions and lives that we live. In your holy name I pray, amen.